Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report in 30 minutes or less, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Speaking of ugly, I got the captain of Ugly Fishing co-hosting with me today. I think Butch is spread out on some porcelain tile somewhere. It sounded like he was in bad shape.
Yep, Butch is feeling ugly, and you got Captain Ugly in his place. How about that?
Well, he said it was a sickness that came, just reached up and grabbed him. But, it is the day after Fat Tuesday, so who knows what's really going on there.
You never really know.
Patrick, the temperatures have cooled off, but fishing is heating up, and we've got some great reports today from all sides, inshore, offshore, and onshore. Before we get there, right now we've got Justin Fadala on the line, and Justin is the tournament director for We've Got Your Six. It's a really important tournament we've got coming up. Justin, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit about We've Got Your Six. Give us some dates and what's going on with the tournament.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for letting us come on here and advertise this, man. We really appreciate that. But, like you said, We've Got Your Six. It's Memorial Fishing Tournament for Sean Tudor, the officer that was killed in the line of duty here a few months back. It's been a great turnout as far as all of our sponsors that came on board. The date of it's March 23rd. It's over on DIP at the American Legion in Theodore. The tournament starts at 5 a.m. and the weigh-in starts in at 12.
How much are those tickets, Justin, and where are they going to be able to get them?
The tickets are $30 a piece. They're available online through fishingchaos.com, or you can get them from Shirley's, Tackle This, Shoot That, or West Marine on Airport Boulevard.
You don't have to be an angler. You can come and just buy a ticket to eat, right, and show your support.
Yeah, man, we've had several people throw us some money to buy some crawfish, the hamburgers, the hot dog. All of this money is going to be donated right back to Sean's family. We're going to have all-you-can-eat crawfish. It's $20 a wristband. The hamburgers we'll have there. Our Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Radio is going to be cooking our hamburgers and hot dogs. It's going to be a really good time. We've got a couple of bands donate their time that day. They're going to be playing for us. I think it's just going to be a really big turnout and a really great time.
Something really unique that you guys are doing is you've got quite a few fishermen who have donated their boats, donated their skills to take some of these officers fishing, right? You got quite a few people that are just taking folks fishing. Yeah,
Joe, that was another great thing. A lot of guys jumped up and said, hey, we'd be happy to take some of the officers fishing free of charge. So if you're a current or retired officer, you just get with me. Fishing Chaos, you can go on there and sign up yourself on there. But your ticket's paid for by a few of our sponsors. So all you've got to do is just get in touch with us, sign up, and you're going to get a free day of fishing. Just come and hang out.
Excellent stuff. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a big success. I appreciate you guys putting that together, and I know a lot of work goes into these events. So thank you guys for doing that. Folks, if y'all, whether you can fish it or not, get out there and support these guys that are doing this for the family of Sean Tudor. It's a really great thing, so show your support.
Yep, it'll definitely be worth just the time to go down there for the event, even if you can't fish. And for the fishermen, we got some cool categories: sheephead, pompano, speckled trout, redfish, white trout.
Yeah, so, you don't even need a boat to participate. So
we had to figure out a way to wrangle the Bama Beach Bum into this thing. And,
yeah, that's right.
It's kind of like dangling the carrot in front of the horse kind of deal,
Absolutely. All right, Justin. Hope y'all have some good weather and good success.
Thanks,
yeah, Justin.
Well, Patrick, they do not have an offshore category in the We've Got Your Six tournament, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go fish it. It's just such a good cause. But speaking of offshore, it's heating up too. That makes me excited. I know I can't wait to get back out in blue water. Today we got Angelo Depaola on the line with us. Angelo's been out in blue water. How'd you do this past weekend, man? What's going on out there?
Man, we had a really good trip, and we were really torn between which direction to run west and catch tunas, with just the reports coming out off the Horseshoe Lump. There are people, 150-pound fish is almost a nondescript fish right now. There's lots of 200-plus pound fish going over there. And I guess kind of what swayed us to run east was between good reports coming out of that area Thursday and Friday. You see 3, 4, 5 boats to catch some fish. But we had a buddy over there fishing on Thursday and said there were 40 boats fishing, and only a handful of boats caught fish, and the guys that were catching them, you really needed to have fresh bait over there right now. If you didn't have king mackerel or fresh bonita or amberjack, you weren't getting bites. You just weren't getting fish behind your boat. So if you're going to make that run to the west, you better plan on swinging in something a little short and trying to catch some good fresh bait to make your trip worthwhile.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. It sounded like it was a king mackerel chunk bait.
Yeah, and it's just funny how those fish get honed in. And kind of what we had here this week, the past week or so, we had some south winds. Whenever you get south wind this time of year from the south or southeast, it pushes those little fry and stuff over on those lumps off of Louisiana. You got a handful of them over there. And those big tunas just come in and feed on them. And so when you start chunking, you give them another bait alternative, and they end up getting caught. With all that being said, we thought we'd roll the dice and run to a high spot off to the east, a little east of the spur, and try our hand at a swordfish. Had a buddy over there hooked a few fish earlier in the week, and we got over there and marked a bunch of bait down deep and got real excited. And basically what happened for us is there's a fish called a pomfret, which is a really cool deep water fish, and they taste good. When you're fishing with 10-0 hooks and bigger baits, your hookup ratio isn't good on them. So we lost a couple baits to those. We caught one. Another buddy of ours was out there. They caught 3 of them. Anyways, it got kind of late in the afternoon, and we went in a little bit inshore and decided to do some deep dropping, caught a bunch of tile fish, and Lady Luck smiled on us, and we snagged a swordfish in the tail. First time I ever caught a swordfish on a deep drop rig. So it's happening. We're kind of, granted it's cold right now, but we're starting. It looks like it's going to warm up this weekend. We're starting to make that transition into spring fishery. We'll have, I imagine the cobia and stuff will start showing up here the
Angelo,
next couple.
When you're out there doing that daytime sword fishing, deep dropping for tile fish, and type of fishing that you're talking about, I know currents are a really big player in that. What was the current like out there?
It was not a lot of current, but it's pretty interesting that you asked that. Is just because you might have one current up top, and then you might have a completely different current, and quite often you do down deep. And when you're fishing a piece of structure like that, you may be fishing a really hard drop off or a little peak. Maybe it's like where we were fishing, for instance. It's around 1,500 feet of water, 1,600 feet of water, and then it comes up to 1,200 feet of water, and it almost kind of looks like a skateboard ramp when you're looking at it on your bottom machine. And so quite often what happens when you have a deep current down there on the bottom, you can see it pushing off the top of that peak. It almost creates a thermocline on the steep side, and you can see the bait and everything will stack up there. So just kind of like you guys, I guess this is like our pro tip of the week, is if you're going to go out there and do it, especially for the swordfish, you're looking for these pockets of structure, and anywhere, 800 feet would be on the shallow side. We call our swordfish tile fishing at 800 feet, up to about 1,700 feet. And I really like 12 to 1,500, that range. And just like, I think Patrick was talking about fishing ledges and stuff, and how these 3 inches of elevation one way or the other may make a difference in the bite. And the same thing in swordfish, like we're looking for these just underwater structures. And you want to fish them where you got a hard ledge. You want to fish on the backside of that ledge where the bait might be stacked up. And so, a lot of times when we get over there, we drop down, and if we're fishing one rod, we'll reel it up to kind of where we can think the thermocline may be. If we don't see a thermocline or current pushing off the structure, we just reel it up 50 feet bottom, and you kind of bump troll it like you would maybe a hardtail for a king mackerel. What that's going to do is going to cause your bait to yo-yo up and down, because you're going to be scoping out your line, and then you're covering a little bit of ground, but we're staying in a tight little area. The spots aren't much bigger than oil rigs a lot of times, so you're kind of just bumping around. You got to watch your rod tip the whole time. The bites are super light. Matter of fact, a lot of times you'll just notice that you don't have any more weight on your line, and that just the big fish swim to the surface.
Right.
So a lot of times the areas that y'all are fishing, you said are not much bigger than like a gas rig or oil rig. It seems a lot smaller than what I was expecting of areas that y'all are fishing. So that's cool to know that that it's that specific.
Angelo, what was the tile fishing like? Did y'all do pretty good on them?
Man, tile fishing was great. They were biting just as soon as you get a bait down, you were catching fish. And like the interesting about tile fish is like, yeah, you'll catch some of those sometimes around structure, the golden tiles. But what those fish really relate to are flat, muddy bottoms, and they kind of burrow in the mud. So like that fishery is not really so much a hold up fishes specific area fishery. It's more of a drift fishery on just flat, muddy bottom. And sometimes you just got to drift around till you find these little colonies of fish. And what you'll notice is you might drift through an area, you'll catch a few, and you may not get a bite for 10 minutes. And then you might drift through another area and catch a few more. That's kind of on days where they're not just tearing it up. That's pretty normal. But if you catch a bunch of swordfish and you look at their bills, one of the things you'll notice is a lot of times they're chipped or broken off the tips, and we call it our swordfish tile fishing. Because I think sometimes those fish move into these mud flat areas, and they whack those bills down in the mud, trying to kick up fish or shrimp or whatever's down there, and eat those. And we got lucky and had one swim by and got stuck in the tail with like a 2-0 circle hook. I mean, that fish had committed suicide.
That's part of it. You got to be out there. You make your own luck. So sounds like you had a good trip. Sounds like things are heating up. I do want to get a tip from you, an offshore tip this week, and it is going to be brought to you by you, Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection. You're brokered by EXP Realty. So Angelo, tell us about your listing of the week. What you got going on over there?
Man, I tell you, like I was looking at the market this Monday and what's available, single family residence houses on the water, and like there's just not a lot of good stuff on the market. Well, I have a great builder that I've partnered with down here, Ben Murphy Builders, and he's built a spec house on the canal on Marina Road, 2,800 square feet. Vinyl plank flooring throughout, except for in the bathrooms where we have tile. It is beautiful. 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, great layout. And here's the cool thing about Marina Road is you're close to everything. It's one of the only places in Orange Beach where you have mixed residential and commercial. So you can hop on your bike, you can wear a pair of sneakers, or what most people do is hop on the golf cart and go up to Orange Beach Marina, Fishers, Tacky Jacks, Sassy Bass. Heck, I got a friend that golf carts it over to Publix and goes shopping off his golf cart. So it puts you in the center of a lot of things with quick and easy access to the Gulf of Mexico. You just come right on out, probably a 5-10 minute boat ride to the Gulf.
Angelo, this listing is up over on your Facebook page?
It is. If you go over to Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, I'm sure if you punch that in on Facebook, I think it's right at the top of my page. We just had it staged. There's a lot of great pictures in there. And anybody that's interested, we're going to be doing an open house there this weekend. You can either get at me through Facebook or through Messenger, or hit me on my cell phone at 850-287-3440. And I don't think it's going to last long. We just got it we got it staged last week. Got new pictures and everything put together. And I think just judging by what's on the market, I think we're priced really well at right at $980, $979.9. So it makes somebody a great house.
Well, Angelo, tell me about your offshore tip. What'd you learn out there?
So this is what I think it's like. Granted, it cooled off a little at the beginning of this week, but as you're offshore, like we're getting in that transitional period where like there's a few people catching some dolphin, there's some king mackerel being caught, there's some tunas being caught. I have no doubt in the next 2 weeks somebody's going to go out there blue marlin fishing and have a really banner day. With that being said, you need to have a little bit of everything on the boat. Have a spinning rod with a popper, spinning rod with a hook that you can toss a bait out of a fish. Like, I mean, basically going tilefish fishing saved our trip. So if you're going to make that long run, be prepared to play the hand you're dealt. We went out and struck out on swordfish and ended up having a really nice trip, and everybody got a couple bags of fish. And I think it's just, we kind of changed our game plan from one thing to the other. I think you got to be flexible when you go fishing. I think that's whether you're offshore fishing or inshore fishing. You got to fish for what's biting.
Well, Angelo, thanks for the report this week, man. We will check back in with you in a coming up show. Man, just stay safe out there. I know one thing, folks, sounds like if folks are going to go deep dropping or tile fishing, they maybe ought to bring a harpoon or a flying gaff with them because they might hook into a swordfish. But
hey, every once in a while, we hooked one a few years ago sword fishing, and it broke us off. And about 5 minutes later, about a 200-pounder comes greyhounding up around the boat with our deep drop rig hanging out of its mouth.
Oh, wow.
All right, buddy. Well, stay safe out there.
Thanks, Angelo.
All right, y'all have a good one.
All right, Patrick, let's take it from the blue water to the white water. We got Matthew Isbell, the Bama Beach Bum, on the line. It's going to give us an onshore report this week. Matthew, am I hearing waves breaking in the background?
Yeah, dude. I'm on the beach as we speak, and it is beautiful. I wish I could show you guys what I'm looking at. I mean, this water is crystal clear, little light wave action kind of just lipping the beach. It's gorgeous out here today.
Sounds nice.
When you get these north winds that are blowing and kind of it smooths that surf action down, and what does that do to the fishing? Are you doing any good?
The last 3 days, no. It's been tough in the surf. These high pressure cold fronts, they will shut it down. Last week we were doing really well with whiting and pompano, mostly small pompano, but catching pretty decent numbers of them. A few keepers, but mostly like 10, 11 inchers. So that's good. I mean, we're probably a little later than we were last year as far as like really having a good steady run of them. But they are getting in here, and these water temperatures are just still a little too low for them to get really heated up real good. But yeah, it's been a tough go this week though. These first few days, it's been frustrating.
Well, I imagine when the temperatures start to creep back up and we get back towards this weekend, that pattern that you were on last week is probably going to pick back up. So tell us about last week and what was successful for you.
Yeah, and that's what I've been telling everybody, that the overall fishing, as far as surf fishing goes, is good. Like, we're where we need to be, and we're catching fish, and the fishing is good. It's just, that this was a massive cold front, really shut things down for us. But right now, the main thing is still your whiting. We're catching 20 to 50 a day, and some really good size ones too. I mean, we're catching 12 to 14 inchers, which is just fantastic. And they're a lot of fun on light tackle, which, I really encourage people to focus on downsizing the tackle for the surf, because, we just get caught up in big fish. But they're hanging real close to the beach in these pockets. And right now, I'll say the afternoons, because our incoming tides throughout the day, as the tide comes in, the afternoons have been way more productive, because they're getting in these deeper holes closer to the beach, and those holes aren't really filling up until you get into the later afternoon and closer to the high tide, but still catching that incoming tide leading up to the high tide. That's when we're having the most success and getting good bites and being able to locate those fish stacked up in those holes.
Have you had any change in the types of bait you're using or anything like that here recently?
It's funny you bring that up. I've been experimenting a lot with ghost shrimp, which has kind of been like a secret bait, I guess, quote unquote, for a while. It's definitely grown in popularity. Most people know about it now. And I hadn't really used it much until this year. I will say for the pompano that we've been catching, even though they've been small, the only thing I've really had consistent success with is ghost shrimp. And putting those baits out deep for those pompano, they're not really hanging much of the holes, but they're hanging further out past the bar, and you got to really sling a bait. But your fish bites, your fresh shrimp, they're not really getting much attention from the pompano. It's really those ghost shrimp. If you want to have a more successful day, you probably want to bring some of those with you. Now the whiting, they're still hitting the fresh dead shrimp. As long as they're there, you'll get them with that. They'll hit fish bites, they'll hit the fresh dead shrimp, no problem. But those pompanos seem to be a little picky right now.
Matthew, with those whiting, are you, especially with these clear water conditions, are you able to see the fish at all, or are you still just focusing on fishing those depressions and those holes?
It's hard to see them from the beach. I was actually on the pier today hanging out with David Thornton, pier pounder, and we were doing a little bit of fishing, and we could see the whiting from the pier because the water's so clear, and you get up above them and see them real well. And they were not eating anything. This was this morning, and we were putting baits. We were putting ghost shrimp, and he had some live shrimp. We were putting it right in front of their face with super light tackle. I think he was using like 4-pound test. I was using 10-pound test, and they were not even showing any bit of interest in any of our baits. So yeah, you could see them, but they just weren't real active right now. I guess the cold front just got them real lethargic and shut them down a bit. But from the beach, I'm not seeing fish. When you're sea level with them, even on a clear day, unless you got like a redfish kind of cruising the bar that kind of sticks out, it's tougher to see them.
Matthew, you were talking about those holes that you're catching these whiting in, and we throw these terms out there a lot, but a lot of folks that are listening really want to know, when you say a hole, give us a picture. Angelo Depaola, we're just talking to him about daytime sword fishing, and he's talking about a spot for daytime swordfish being as big as 1 or maybe 2 oil rigs. When you're in the surf, how big is one of these areas that you're keying in on for whiting?
Yeah, and I'm looking at it right now, so I'm going to try to paint this picture because I'm staring at a few really good ones on the beach. What it does, you got these points that run out from the beach. So like if you're forget about the water for a second. You stand parallel to the beach and you stare down the beach, you're going to see these points that have formed in the sand that are sticking further out. So it's not like a straight line of beach. You've got all these points, right? These points run typically, that shallow water, that sand, as it runs out to the bar, is usually going to stay shallow most of the way from the beach all the way to the bar. Okay. And that may be anywhere from 6 inches deep to a foot deep, especially depending on the tide, relative to what time of day you're in. But this is really shallow water. And basically, when you see these points off of the beach, you'll notice that the waves coming in are generally breaking all the way to the beach over these points. And it's just communicating to you that you've got this really shallow water. What happens when you've got this point, it's kind of been formed by the waves, by storms, by, whatever coming through, currents, winds, pushing this water around and creating these points where the sand is built up. And on either side of that, you're gonna run into deeper water, typically on both sides of that. And that's going to transition from anywhere from like 6 to 12 inches to 18 to 32, 36 inches deep. So maybe waist deep, somewhere in there. If you're walking out in it, maybe ankle to knee deep, going from waist to belly button deep into these holes. Okay. So you're anywhere from 3.5 feet deep in these holes that are closer to the beach on the beach side of the bar. So we're not talking far out. We're talking just within 20 to 30 yards from the sand on the beach. Everything's really close. But what happens, because you've got this shallow water coming from the bar and from that point, and you've got these waves, you've got this current, everything ripping over that, generally you're going to find your whiting and slot redfish and your puppy drum that are going to relate to that structure. A lot of times they're going to hug the edge of that, and they're going to be sitting there just waiting on the ghost shrimp getting washed over, the kachina shells, the sand fleas, everything that they're feeding on. They're just sitting there waiting to ambush them while they're getting washed over that shallow water. So usually if you kind of hug that edge of that shallower water in that hole, that's typically where you're going to find them.
Matthew, you were talking about fishing on the incoming tide because those fish are able to push up closer to the beach and get in those holes. Do you find it helpful to go out when it's low tide and identify these areas? Can you see them better on a low tide?
Yeah, it is helpful, especially if you don't have clear water. Like right now, the water's crystal clear. So as long as you have polarized lenses and you know what you're looking for, you can see every nook and cranny of these holes and cuts and bars and everything. But if it's not clear water, then absolutely, yeah, you'd want to get out there as close to low tide as possible so that you can, because all this will be uncovered. You're not going to have water covering it up, so you can see all these points rushing out from the beach. You'll be able to see where there's deeper dips in the sand leading up to the bar. That would be extremely helpful if you don't have the clear water to be able to communicate it to you.
Hey, Matthew, you're going to have this week's Hay Cap question. This week's HACAP question is emailed to us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com and is brought to us by KillerDock. I have personally suffered from dock dysfunction over the years, filleting fish on dirty wood and splinters, rusty nails, all of the such, and I don't think I could ever get relief. I'd gotten used to the dirty wood on the fish cleaning tables and the heat of the sun baking my skin. I looked around at all my friends, and they're all afflicted with dock dysfunction as well. I felt helpless, but now KillerDock brings us the dock enhancements that not only will put end of the suffering, it will make being on the dock more enjoyable. KillerDock combines durability, function, and design to unique upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit KillerDock.com to check it out for yourself.
Patrick, I knew you were suffering, man. I'm glad you've been able to get some help.
It. Yeah, I finally admitted. And that's the first step to bettering yourself.
It feels good. It feels good to put it out there in the universe.
Yeah, it does. All right, so Matthew, this is this week's HACAP question. It's from Brian Roberts. See, I have tried using sand fleas while surf fishing, but have not had much luck. Is it possible that I'm hooking them wrong, or is there a proper or best way to present this type of bait?
Yeah, when you're surf fishing with sand fleas, which I assume right now you may be using frozen, you may not be, you may be raking some because there's not many to rake up. The colonies haven't really shown up, and that is a great food source for pompano. But this time of year, that's not their main food source, so it could be that if it is this time of year. But what you're going to run into a lot of times in the surf is that sand flea washing off out in the surf if you don't hook it properly. Or coming off when you cast. A lot of people have that issue because it's kind of a softer crustacean. It's just not going to stay on the hook real well unless you hook it properly. So something to keep in mind, number one, fresh is always going to stay on the hook better. So if you are using frozen sand fleas, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to keep that on the hook. But what you do want to do anytime you're using sand fleas and you're hooking them, you want to make sure you're using real light wire hooks, because if you use like a thicker gauge hook or a broader hook, it's going to usually crack that shell as you hook that sand flea. And when that happens, that's going to wash off even if you aren't able to cast it out there and get it in the water. Typically, the waves are just going to knock it off. So you want to use real light wire. I use the Owner Mutu Light circle hooks, and it's a lighter wire hook, so it's real thin gauge. And you just want to be real gentle when you're hooking that through the sand flea. And I just hook it from underneath through the top of the shell. So I start from the belly and then hook right through the middle of that sand flea. And as long as you put just a large enough hole just for the tip of that hook to get through, it'll stay on there just fine. Something else you can do as well if you're having a hard time keeping them on there is, of course, use fish bite. I do that a lot too. I'll just use a little piece of fish bite to kind of tip that hook to make sure that it hugs on there secure. So that's what most people have a hard time with, is just keeping that sand flea on the hook and just doing those couple of things, making sure you're using fresh sand fleas and making sure that you're using light wire hooks and hooking it real gentle and not cracking the shell, then you won't have any trouble keeping it on there.
What size hook is that you're using?
When I'm using sand fleas, usually I am using a little bit bigger hook because I like to use like size 6. You use like a size 2, that's fine. But you may want to even go up to like a 1/0 circle hook, 1/0 circle hook,
okay.
Just because you're going to want something a little bit bigger. And Chris Vecce talked about this at our seminar. He made a real good point that, your hook size is based on the bait that you're using and not necessarily the fish that you're targeting. So that's what you want to keep in mind. Usually these sand fleas are a little bit bigger, so you need a little bit bigger hook than normal.
Okay. Well, Brian Roberts, thanks for the question. You'll be getting this week's Fairhope Rattle.
All right, Patrick, let's wrap this baby up. We got the offshore covered. We got the onshore covered. That only leaves us with one thing. That's probably your favorite thing. That's the inshore report.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear what Richard's been up to.
Captain Blood. What's going on, Captain Richard Rutland?
Captain Blood. I like it, huh? Out for blood. Man, fishing's been great. The last week, we had this real good warm-up period down the Mississippi Sound, ran a charter and did a couple of scouting days down there and really started to see some fish transition into what I'd call a springtime pattern. Lots of flats fishing, catching a bunch of, real active fish in shallow water on popping cork and a shrimp, and also voodoo. A few topwater fish mixed in there as well, so a lot of fun.
That's good. Hey, Richard, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it the other day. You know, you and I fished up on the Delta before we had all this water coming down again, and I noticed that we still had a lot of grass that survived the winter. How's the grass looking down there?
Man, it's looking great. There's a lot of grass on all the banks, particularly down in Grand Bay. There's a lot of grass around all the islands and on the banks, and then down there around Westfowl River area, there's still a lot of grass down there too. So I feel like the grass is doing great, better than it has in the past. Yeah, that's always a good sign for life, you know.
Richard, you've been down in the Sound, but Patrick, you've been doing a little bit of fishing still in some of the tidal rivers. Still doing pretty good in the tidal rivers.
Yeah, I fished East Fowl, West Fowl, and then I fished Magnolia River. All three of those rivers, the water is in pretty good shape, and fish are biting. So,
when you say water's in good shape, what do you mean? Do you mean color? Do you mean
color,
temperature? Yeah,
color and clarity. I mean, I could all of the places we could see probably 18 inches to 24 inches in depth. So it was in pretty good shape.
I definitely agree with that statement. I've been in Dog River a little bit one day, and water clarity's holding up in there. I'm assuming that this big push of fresh water we have coming down out of Mobile rivers is hopefully not going to affect some of our tidal rivers to stay clean, I'm hoping.
What's the live bait situation like?
Man, it's been fairly easy to come by. I've been getting it down there from Deer River, down there at Theodore Industrial Canal. He's been real consistent pretty much all winter. And in fact, I just got off the phone with him a little while ago. I'm going to pick up some for my charter tomorrow. They said it looks great. They're still catching it pretty good.
Excellent. I mean, do you feel like it's still, I mean, obviously you're getting some for your charter, but I mean, do you think it's a necessity right now, or could you do just as good with artificials?
You could probably get close with artificials. Tell you the one thing I always have been noticing a lot more in the past couple of years is a lot of times with live bait, you'll get a ton of numbers, but not a lot of size. And you switch over to artificial, and your size of your fish that you're catching, talking about trout anyway, seems to get a little bit better. So I don't know what that's all about, but I'd say you'd still probably do just as good with artificials as you would live bait right now. But the only reason I've taken it a couple of times is just so I know for a fact whether I'm getting around that artificial curve.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I always feel like March and April, you can usually catch your better fish in artificial bait. Once you get into May, it seems like you start seeing some of that transition more to a live bait thing. Do you feel the same way there?
I do. Yep. As soon as that water temperature starts to come up a little bit, they get more picky. But while it's still cool, they seem way more aggressive, way more inclined to hit plastic than a live.
Yep.
Well, Richard, you got to give us the inshore tip. And this week's brought to us by Trotter Marine. They've still got 2018 inventory over there, and they've got a big sale going on to make room for 2019. Guys, y'all can save a good bit of money on Crestliner aluminum boats and Triton fiberglass boats right now, and they guarantee the best service in Mobile and Baldwin County. They got 18 years making you their number one priority to back that up. They've also got a full line of truck accessories over at Trotter. Y'all give Ray or Burns a call at 251-679-5959 or go by Trotter Marine in Satsuma on Highway 43, and you can visit them online at trottermarinellc.net. Richard, sounds like things are getting better on the inshore side of things. What do you think is the key right now? What do you got for a tip?
Well, something I didn't talk about in my report was, about my trip today. I went in one of the tidal rivers. And we just had a nice cool off the past 2 nights. It looks like we're going to get another one tonight. And saw the water temperature starting to dip it down into the mid-50s. And usually when I see that, I know the fish are going to somewhat become lethargic in some of these shallower areas. And something I do is, I've been doing real good on all these fish on suspending baits, top water, stuff like that. And today I couldn't get any reaction out of a fish with that pattern, so I switched over to a grub and I started working the lower part of the water column, and I started catching fish. So I guess my tip is around some of these cold fronts, take note and put your bait where the other fish are. Looking at my bottom machine, I noticed everything today was glued to the bottom, all the bait that I saw, just in transit, running around, doing what I was doing, everything was glued to the bottom. So that's why I switched over and I started having some success with that.
Richard, it's one of the things is I recommend people go fishing with you guys because there's a lot of nuance to any kind of fishing that it's hard to describe it all the time. You really have to see somebody do it. And, offshore, especially when we're doing like vertical jigging and jigging deeper, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll fish our way down. So we're working our way through the water column, but we're fishing our way down as opposed to just dropping it to a certain depth and then jigging it back up. What you're talking about, fishing the bottom part of the water column, explain to me how you, what I call prospect. So if you've got 6 feet of water, 8 feet of water, 10 feet of water, doesn't matter. If you cast that jig out, if you cast that jig and grub out there, you're just going to let it sink to the bottom and then work it back and try to keep it close to the bottom, or are you kind of counting it down? How do you prospect the water column?
Well, anytime I'm fishing a jig, I don't really have a lot of confidence that I'm going to do anything with it unless I'm making contact with the bottom. Basically like what you said, whether I'm in 4 foot, 8 foot, 14 foot of water, whatever it happens to be, when I cast out, I'm letting my jig hit the bottom, and I'm making contact with the bottom every time that I'm making a retrieve. Every time I'm kind of hopping it along on the bottom, I'm feeling it hit the bottom again before I pick my rod tip back up. So I think that answers your question. That like I said, I don't have confidence that I'm going to catch anything unless I'm bumping that bottom every time I'm retrieving it.
And how far are you trying to bring it up off the bottom? So obviously you're making that contact, but are you trying to just keep it right near the bottom, or are you bringing it up foot, 6 inches, 18 inches?
I'd say, I'm picking it up 18 inches to 2 feet off the bottom, something like that, and then just letting it slowly fall back down to the bottom. That's usually when you're going to get your bites, when the bait's falling back down. So it's always real important to keep your rod tip up or to keep tension on the line as it's falling back down so you can feel that bite. So
Richard, a lot of times, well, like you said, you were catching your fish. You ended up catching your fish more towards the bottom. Did you start off with your regular routine, or were you throwing popping corks and top water, or what were you doing to start your morning, and to kind of walk us through that transition into finding the fish on the bottom?
Yeah, so I was doing my regular thing, pretty much throwing a slick lure in top water, and just got zero activity on that. Wasn't seeing a lot of bait activity or anything like that, no jumping mullet or anything. And like I said, throughout the morning when I was transiting areas, I'd kind of slow down, focus on my electronics a little bit. You could see where anything and everything as far as life goes was glued to the bottom. That's kind of what made it, the light come on in my brain and say, man, I need to be fishing on the bottom. And sure enough, it started to happen for me. So I definitely did start off in my normal routine, and it kind of caught my eye a little bit after I didn't catch a fish or two or anything, even a bite after the first 3 spots I hit.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that go fishing, especially guys that are getting out there just on Saturdays every week, and they can get frustrated after the first couple of stops, and instead of being frustrated, they just need to try to learn from what things are telling them.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I could tell that, as soon as I caught my first fish today, I could tell the lethargic thing was kind of happening with the cold, because it was a real light bite, good sized fish, real light bite, and it didn't really do any running or fight me real hard or pull any drag off or anything like that. They just kind of like wallered all the way back to the boat as I was reeling them in. And that's just typical of these, that's typical around some of these cool-offs this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Richard. Well, thanks for the report this week. We will check back in with you coming up. Stay safe out there, buddy.
All right, man. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
All right, Patrick. You going to go to the ACFA meeting tomorrow night?
Yeah, man. I should be able to get over there to it. It seems like they start talking around 6 o'clock. I like to tell people, when they ask me when to get there, I usually tell them to get there about 5:30, 5:45, and get there, get you a seat, get you some food ordered, get ready for the fish talking.
Yeah, drink a beer. Moe's downtown, they got a good beer selection. They got some real good barbecue. For folks that don't know about the ACFA, tell me a little bit about the club.
So the ACFA, real short, was founded in 1997. It's grown, and it's been a way for people to join together, talk about inshore fishing, having some inshore fishing challenges. We have tournaments, starting in March all the way through October. The tournaments are all about points and bragging rights. It's not about money and it's not about that. It's all about points and plaques and bragging rights and such. And, I was president of the club for 4 years, and between being president and being vice president, doing the different things I did with the club was great. But just being a member of the club just grew me so much in a sense of being an angler. I have to say that a lot of my inshore knowledge came from being a member of the ACFA and participating with the ACFA. And I tell folks, you get out of it what you put in it. And it's, you need to show up to the meetings. You need to go to the tournaments. Even if you don't fish a tournament, just show up for the weigh-in. And the dock talk is usually pretty good at the weigh-ins. You get kind of an insight on what the fish trends are. And you may talk to somebody that caught some fish in areas that you never would have thought about fishing this time of year. So, there's so much to learn. So many different personalities. People fish different ways. We have guys that fish artificial bait all year round to guys that are, that try to hit every different type of fish on the board.
Well, David Thornton is the president now, the pier founder. And he does it all for sure. And
he does it all.
They y'all have a meeting first Thursday of every month. So this one coming up will be March 7th. And I believe the first tournament of the year is going to be March 16th. So a lot of cool things happening down there at the ACFA. Alabama Coastal Fishermen's Association. All right, Patrick, what'd you learn today, man?
Well, I heard two things. I didn't necessarily hear it from Angelo, but I definitely heard it from Matthew and Richard. Was the fish felt this cool snap. They all slowed down and got a little lethargic on us. Despite us having some warm weather and the water temperature is a little bit warmer than normal, you still have to react to each of the situations. Whether if we were getting a cool down, the fish are going to slow down. If it's warming up, the fish apparently are going to speed up. So,
yeah, and I think Angelo echoed that in a way. He wasn't necessarily talking about the cold temperatures, but he was talking about being prepared for anything. We're in this transition period right now between winter and spring, and depending on what the weather's doing, you can get a wintertime pattern one day and a springtime pattern the next. So being prepared not only with your tackle, but also with your mindset to be able to adapt to whatever that day may throw at you. Because right now it's water's cooling off. The air temperature is very cold. As we start to transition up, as the temperature starts to rise, it may take a day for those fish to respond to that. So we may have warmer air temperatures, but they may still be in this cooler pattern. So that was what I think I learned today. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up. As always, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like us to email you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Y'all keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com. And also Trotter Marine. Call Ray or Burns at 251-679-5959 or check them out at TrotterMarineLLC.com.
Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. Also brought to you by Cold Blooded Fishing and Captain Richard Rutten. Check him out at coldbloodedfishing.com.
And also Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com.